Welcome, Lisa. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you today?
I am so happy to be here, Catherine, and it's delightful to meet you. It really is.
Pleasure is all mine. Let's start right in. First, I want to say I received your gift, your two wonderful books, and I can't wait to dive in each of them. Would you like to share first a little bit about your story and what led you to write both of these books?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So the first book is probably makes, we'll do it in chronological order, and that explains my story. So the first book is Set Yourself Free, which is CET. CET stands for Conscious Emotional Transformation. And I came to this out of my experience of essentially I was groomed and then trafficked as a child and held as a virtual house prisoner for 5 years by what I didn't even know at the time. I didn't find out until literally like something like 25, 30 years after I'd escaped, that it was part of a bigger ring, pedophile ring. Now, when I managed to get out, I managed to escape when I was about 20. And I had all, like all the things. I was agoraphobic. I had low self-worth, low self-esteem. I had social anxiety disorder, PTSD, CPTSD. Like I was just a walking problem. And I and I went on this journey to try and figure out how to heal.
Mhm.
And I knew that it even took me a while to figure out that not everyone wakes up every morning just hoping to get through the day. Anyway, I went on this journey and I really in-depthly researched
Mhm.
therapies, healing modalities, and everything from like the hardcore psychotherapy, Freudian analysis, right, the psychiatry, right through to the crazy woo-woo, like the really weird stuff, like the whole spectrum. And I found some things worked, some
Mhm.
things didn't work at all, some things made it worse, some things I just didn't understand. And so I thought, well, I'm a scientist, I'm an engineer. I will put on my research hat and figure out how to make it, like what is it that makes it work, how does this work. I identified the really four approaches to healing. There is the energy rate, which is kind of the Reiki, theta healing, quantum healing, which is some kind of, you've got an energy imbalance and the practitioner does something to rebalance the energy, and it works. But sometimes, because the resistance is still there, the energy builds back up again. So the emotion builds back up again. The other type is the kind of NLP coaching, counseling, the what I would call the psychology or the sort of psycho approach. So that would be like the psychology, psychiatry, NLP coaching, counseling,
Mhm. Mhm.
that kind of approach. Now, this is all about reframing and understanding the problem. Again, can be very, very powerful. Now I understand my problem, but it doesn't always resolve it. Like even a reframe, it's like I've still got the problem. I just think about it a bit differently.
Yes.
Then there's the somatic approach, and this is the kind of body movement, breath work, where you move it through your body, and you don't analyze it, you don't try and understand it, you just feel it and then move it through your system.
Mhm.
Again, this works, but for some people, they're like, I don't understand it. Like I need to understand what happened and why and what's going on. And all of these typically only work on one gestalt or one memory at a time, so one event at a time. Then there's the fourth form, which is what you might call transpersonal or beyond the individual or spiritual. And this would be like your shamanic healing, your higher self kind of work. Now, what conscious emotional transformation does is it actually uses all four modalities. And that's why it's so powerful. Because whenever anyone does set and they experience set and they go, oh my God, it's amazing. And then they'll say, it's just like blah. And yes, and because it's just like, and what people do is they see it through the filter of what they know. So they'll
Yes.
say, oh,
Yes.
it's just like Reiki. Oh, it's just like Theta. Oh, it's just like there was somebody talking about another kind of energy healing, which I recently, and they'll say, it's just like that. And it's like, yes, and now the and is that because it uses all four modalities. And then The next piece to set is it utilizes it. I mean, there's a lot of modalities that utilize neuroplasticity,
Mm-hmm.
but what SET does there was an article, a paper published in about 2012, where they really laid the groundwork for neuroplasticity. And everyone got all excited about it. But what they missed, what most people missed, was in the second half of that article,
Mm-hmm.
there was actually this period of time, which is after a significant event or transformation, when the neurology is plastic. And mostly people interpret this as like you have an event, like a very shocking event. And in this very brief period afterwards, which is only something like 2 up to maybe 4 or 6 hours immediately after the shock, like the change event. And in that period of time, your neurology is wide open. And that's when new beliefs can be installed. Now, those new beliefs can
Mm-hmm.
be limiting, and
Mm-hmm.
that's frequently what happens. You have a horrible event, it's very emotional, it's very traumatic, and then somebody will say something, or you'll think something to yourself, like, I'm a bad person, and that, boom, gets installed. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what SET does is it uses this. So, what it does is it kind of repairs and restores. So, it sort of alters the neurology in the transformational experience, not the traumatic experience, and in this transformational experience, and then immediately after that, we then use that period of post transformational growth. So rather than post traumatic growth, or rather, most people, think of PTSD as just like, oh, it's all about problem. But we think of it as actually, this is the biggest opportunity where when we go through that transformation, which is not traumatic when we do with SET, it's beautiful and it's blissful, but it still opens the door to the plasticity of the neurology. And in that period, that's where we literally rewire the nervous system for expansion and growth. So you are now able to hold more. What that more is might be more joy, more fun, more money, more, or better relationship. Like it just up levels you systemically. So that's kind of like the key to this book. I actually don't talk about all 4 modalities in this book. That's a fairly recent piece, which is a paper I've just written, which will soon be available on my website. I talk about 2. I talk about psycho-spiritual, and then I realized actually I've missed linguistic and the kind of energetic piece. So sort of splitting those out. But I think that's sort of the key to that part of the work of my life, which is it came as me trying to heal myself. And
Mm-hmm.
now I've created a modality which I believe, and I like every time, this is the really difficult thing about SET. If there's anything difficult about SET, it's getting people to understand the absolute total mind-blowing magnetism of how amazing it is. Because most people think of it as like, oh, it's just like it. So they look at it like through the little pigeonhole lens of what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And I often say it's like, here we are at 2024, towards the end of 2024, at the time of recording. And if you went back 150 years and you said, I can get from London to Edinburgh in about an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half, people would be going, oh, how fast are your horses? Like, what is, you're like, that's impossible. Do you know what I mean? Because like horses can't go that, because they're only looking through the lens of horses can't go that fast. And it's like, but I've got a plane. And there's, people can't fly. And it's like, this is the level of the advancement of the technology in SET, that because it uses all 4 modalities and it uses this post-traumatic growth or post-transformational growth, that it is beyond what anyone's experienced. So hopefully that explains a little bit about my background and a little bit about
Absolutely,
SET.
absolutely, yes. The first moment I met you online, I felt such a beautiful energy, and I just felt the need to connect with you. I honestly didn't know what you went through, and now I understand. I've been through some hard experiences like surviving war and things like that, and also dealing with a lot of things you mentioned, trying to find a way for myself. As I mentioned to you before we started recording, I went through 46 personal growth programs in all of these fields. And when the postman surprised me with your books, I actually thought, finally someone is putting everything at the one place so that we can really and truly learn and help each other. People can see us only through the lenses they can see themselves. And people can understand these methodologies only from their former experiences and everything that they learned from, right? So when you talk about energy or NLP, which is, I would say, mind connected, right? And then you talk about spiritual field and woo-woo things, like people like to call that. But that's my favorite part of growth, honestly. And everything else, we need to work on all of these aspects of ourselves and treat ourselves as growing human beings. And that is what I believe you are actually giving us by presenting this book and much more that you've been working on. I can feel now, when they say usually angels on earth have to go through very difficult paths so they can become the light for others. This is how I see you now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That is such a beautiful thing to say. I appreciate you.
It's my pleasure. You have a purpose. You were trying to help yourself, but you are actually helping all of us. We are now at a state in the whole world when there is a huge mess, if I may say that. House and wars are everywhere, and I know that you might actually have a methodology or a solution for us on how to cope with all of this and how to grow through all of these experiences. Would you like to share something about that? And of course, mention your next book.
Sure. Yeah. So this is my latest book, which is Our Conscious Tipping Point. And you talked there about, some of the things that you'd been through. And I kind of feel at the moment, like it feels like the whole of humanity is going through something.
Exactly.
And what I think we're going through is like we are at what we need to go through in order to get to our conscious tipping point. And one of the things I do, and I don't really even know totally how I do it, but I do seem to do this thing where I spot patterns
Mhm.
and to really understand some of the chaos that we're in right now and why I think set, the modality set, is so called for is if we understand the patterns of how we got to where we are now. So if we go back to about 100 years ago, it's like I'm determined to take us back to the past, but so that we can go to the future.
Yeah.
So in both my answers, I've mentioned going back about 100. We're going to go back about 100 years, 100 and a bit years. So if we go back to the beginning of like the 1900s, we had two world wars, World War One, World War Two. We had a pandemic in between. We had the Great Recession also in between. And people didn't have enough food to eat. They didn't have anywhere to live. And this predominantly is in the Western, what would be called like the Western world or the Western North, it's sometimes called, like the developed North. And so people demanded and they got new, like housing, we
Mhm.
got mass produced food,
Mhm.
we got structure and systems that ensured everyone had somewhere to live, may not be great, but it's a roof,
Mhm.
and enough food to eat. And the different countries organized that in different ways. But that was what was attempted to, what the country and what the society was attempting to do. Now, when everyone's got enough food to eat and somewhere to live, you have the base chakra of society being activated. Then what happened with enough food to eat and then, somewhere to live, then you've got your foundations in place. And then we move into the swinging 60s, so we have an explosion of fashion,
Mhm.
music, art, creativity, sexual revolution. And this is the sacral chakra of society being activated.
Mhm.
Then what happened was it kind of in the 70s. I don't know about if you noticed this wherever, and or your listeners wherever you were, but certainly many people I know who grew up either in America, the UK, Europe, or Australia. The 70s got a little bit sleazy, a little bit pervy. It's like sexuality went weird and it was a little bit too much. And then, so in the 70s, that pushed into the 80s where it was like, oh, let's make things a little bit more sensible. Let's bring back a little bit more structure, a little bit more rationality. And so then people decided they wanted personal, individual freedom, individual will, individual power, and individual wealth. And this is the solar plexus. This is the me, I. This is Madonna in the material world. This is, the material girl. And this is, greed is good. So this is the solar plexus chakra of society being activated. Now, then people either got burnt, and there were a few stock market crashes, or they got burnt out and they just like, I want to feel my emotions. I want to express my feelings. And then
Mhm.
in the 90s, we had an interesting phenomena, and this phenomena, which I don't think up until then anyone had seen before. And I don't think we've even seen it to the same extent since.
Mhm.
When Princess Diana died,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
she labeled herself before her death, she said, I'll never be queen, but I want to be queen of people's hearts.
Yes.
And when she died, she cracked our hearts wide open, and everyone suddenly felt all the grief of every loss, of every sadness, of everything they've ever felt. And this is the heart chakra of society being
Mhm.
activated. And in this time, we also have an explosion of new therapies, and suddenly it's okay to be in therapy, whereas before it was like, oh, there must be something really wrong with you now. It's like, what's wrong with you if you're not in therapy? Now, with all of these emotions, everybody wants to express them. And at the same time, technology comes to our aid and the birth of the internet. So in the early noughties, we have the internet suddenly in everyone's home, and then moving in onto everyone's phone, we have all of the social media. So everyone's podcasting, YouTubing, talking, listening, speaking, sharing. And this is the throat chakra of
Mhm.
society being activated. Now, with everyone, now we have a platform to share our beliefs and our feelings. This gave a platform and the means for spirituality, and particularly the kind of new age spirituality, to go mainstream. Now, when I left academia, and I got to being a senior lecturer in automotive electronics and automotive engineering, and at the time, if I had mentioned that I was by day, senior lecturer in engineering, and then by night doing shamanic healing and Reiki, like reading tarot cards, reading oracle cards, like people would, I would have like, in fact, I sat in the staff room when people who did that sort of thing were openly mocked. Now, if you're not using oracle cards in the boardroom, if you don't have mindfulness and you don't have meditation rooms in your business, like, oh, you're not really taking care of your staff. So spirituality went mainstream. And
Mhm.
this happened in the 2010s. So this is the third eye chakra of
Mhm.
society being activated. Now, you may have noticed another little pattern here. Before the chakra above activates, the one below becomes excessive. So in the 50s, it was a very, very rigid, you go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have two kids. That's the rule. That's how it was very rigid. That was an excess of the base chakra. And then, the sleazy perviness of the 70s is the excess of the sacral. Then the kind of overly, it's only about the money and let's deny emotions is the excess of the solar plexus. And then it became like the emotions that were expressed towards the end of the 90s. It's like there was so much emotion. We had to find an outlet. This was it almost became over sentimental. It was like, where people are spending, thousands and thousands and thousands of saving one dog when there are children in the world dying of starvation. It's like, I mean, I get it. Don't be mean to dogs. Dogs are great. I had a dog. I love my dog. And I love my pets. And but and like there needs to be some balance here.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
this was the overexpression of the heart. Then the overexpression of the throat was like when everyone started talking a lot of nonsense, which still happens.
That's true.
Like, let's face it, there's a lot of nonsense talked in a lot of places, and it still happens. And then kind of when COVID hit, and
Mhm.
it's like, so then we had this excess of the third eye, and spirituality went toxic. This is where the beautiful tenets of spirituality, like that were intended to empower, like We're the creators of our own universe and our own experience. Got turned into, how did you create being groomed and trafficked? I had somebody on a podcast ask me that question. And it's like, well, I get the whole like creator of our universe, but we don't backdate it. You
Mhm,
know, it's like
mhm,
when
mhm.
I was 12, I didn't really understand that. So where we are now is in the excess actually of all the chakras. So
Wow.
we're in the, and that's why we have so much chaos. It's why we have this experience of, we have better, access to medicine and healthcare than ever before, yet we're sicker than ever before. We have better means to access good food than ever before, and yet there are more people both malnourished and overweight, and sometimes at the same time than ever before. We have more access to information and educated and education than ever before, and yet people, forgive me, some people seem like willfully ignorant, willfully, like they are willfully refusing to explore other possibilities. It's like, no, they've got their blinkers on. I know this and I'm right. And it's like, but there's all this other information that we could at least consider and explore.
Exactly.
So we're in the excess of all of the chakras, and there's a reason for it.
Mhm.
And the reason is because we need that excess to pierce the crown chakra. So it's the excess of the one below that pierces the one above. We need the excess of all of the chakras below to pierce the crown chakra. And that's what I call our conscious tipping point. There's one piece I want to say at this point, which I think is really important, because often people hear this and I speak to a lot of spiritual, beautiful spiritual souls.
Mhm.
And they say things like, people just need to wake up. And it's like, yeah, they do, but that's not how to get people to wake up. Or,
Exactly.
or they say, like, oh, we're going to be saved because the angels, the aliens, the tech billionaires, they're going to come and save us. And it's like, that may be true. That may be true. I'm not saying it's not true, but I want to just post this little thought. What if there's no one coming?
To save us.
What if there is no one coming to save us?
Mhm.
Because here's the thing, and this is the message that if I could convey any message to anyone right now, it would be you might be the person who is coming to save not everyone, but someone. You are here so that you can shine your light in these times that seem so dark. Because one of the things I think that is really dangerous is when we see, when spiritual people awaken and they see the world as it truly is, and then they go, oh, the world is horrible. It's full of all this evil and all this terrible stuff. And I need to protect myself from all of the toxic people and the toxic spaces and I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to meditate in my lovely, lovely place. And that's great. And lucky you for having a lovely place. But here's the thing, if every single spiritual person awakened, looked at the world and said, oh, how terrible, and then they withdrew from the world, just if we do that as a thought experiment, what are we left with? And I'm just going to give everyone just a moment to ask the question. If by definition, all of those who are awakened withdraw from participating in the world, who is left to participate? Who is left to be the leaders? Who is left to be the educators? Who is left to be the action takers?
Mhm.
And the logical conclusion is, by definition, those who are not awakened, those who are, they may be good people and great, that's lucky. But they may also be those who are only thinking of themselves and can only ever think of themselves, who are doing everything that they do, all of their actions are out of ego and greed,
Mm.
rather than, I think one of the definitions of a truly awakened person, and I call these people the transcendents because they are transcending the
Mhm.
reality right now. And they are, if you think about the word transcending or
Mhm.
transcendent, it is trans ending. We are ending the trance that we've been in. And those people who are trance enders, they're ending the trance. They are people who are always mindful of what is for the highest good of all. And I say, beautiful spiritual people, the way to save us all is not to wait to be saved, but to be the savior of yourself and whoever. And it's not like saving as in a rescuing, it's just to support, to assist, to guide, to be the light to whoever needs it, to transcend, to be that transcender and ending the trance for others.
Wow, Lisa. First of all, I'm speechless. Second of all, when we started this conversation, we mentioned that we postponed this meeting for several times. And now, when I was listening to you, back then I said I believe in divine timing and everything happens for a reason. You just came like a godsend for my own soul. And I want other people who are listening and watching to this to feel this very deeply. Because first, when you said that you were an engineer and then, after a job, you were doing some other beautiful things. I was programmer, and after my job, I was learning a lot about energy. Back in 2008, I went to Human Universal Academy of Energy. That's the first time I actually started learning about healing because I had health issues. And as a scientific person, I didn't believe in any of that, but it ended up I was healed. So I went into my deep spiritual awakening, which is still ongoing. And now, when you explained all of this about chakras, but from the perspective of the whole society, which I never thought of, I was working with my holistic doctor on my third chakra. We're on the path of again reopening and moving energies from my own blockages and everything. You were just talking about that, and I have to admit I am one of those who got a little bit afraid, and I backed up in my own nice room and meditation and everything else, although I consider myself as being an awaken. And I now realized that we need to speak up and we need to be louder and we need to share this message because I believe that's the way this world can actually really wake up as the whole and go to the much more beautiful path. I don't know. I'm just speechless. I'm just thinking about everything that you just shared. It resonates deeply with my heart. I believe it's extremely important for people to understand this. And I encounter a lot of people who simply don't understand that. As I mentioned, I believe they see in us what they hold in themselves. What would be your, if I may say, advice, or what are your thoughts about how we can approach these people? Or is there any kind of way that the message that we are sharing can actually get to their hearts? I will say hearts, not minds, because I believe it's more important for their hearts to open. So we are, if I understood well, at the end of the cycle and opening the seventh chakra as a society. So, what do you see in the future for us when that happens?
Yeah, well, I think that, and first of all, it is almost like a lot of people ask me this question, what do I see in the future? And I'm very cautious about how I answer because I think there's a temptation if I answer this for people to assume that that's a foregone conclusion. So the way I'll answer this is here's what I would like to see.
Mhm.
Here's what I would like to see.
Mhm.
I'd like to live in a world where the world is led by spiritually awakened and awakening, because I think spiritual awakening is not a one-time event, it's a
No.
constant process. I'd like to live in a world and see a world where everyone is making decisions for the highest good of all, not just their small community. And, you mentioned how you had withdrawn from the world. And I also want to say, I mention this not as any kind of judgment, because I do think that sometimes that's okay to do that because we all need to replenish and rest and recover from whatever, spiritual awakening.
I
It's
understood, but
it's
in my
yeah,
case,
yeah,
it took a little bit too long, I have to say.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it
I
may have
felt,
been divine time. Maybe it's divine timing.
yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. So I think I see a world where, or I'd love to see a world where everyone is taking personal responsibility, where
Mm,
we come at this, and you said this, which is beautiful, where you said, where we reach their hearts. And I think that's really key because I think when I mentioned how spirituality had gone very toxic, it lost the core most, I think one of the most important things, and it's certainly what brought me into spirituality, which was compassion,
mm,
compassion and understanding. Because, like it's so easy to sit on the outside and go, oh, well, that was a bit of a silly decision you made there. It's like, oh, I wouldn't have got groomed and trafficked by a pedophile ring. That was, it's like, well, you know what? Good for you. I must have been really stupid. Or, it's like if we come at it from a place of compassion that, everyone is trying, everyone is working on doing what they need to do.
mhm.
And, I think one of the things that, like, if we could release the emotion first of collective humanity's guilt and shame,
Yes, finally someone said that.
because here's the thing, I think humanity is in a place of, so here's what I think we're in. We're in a place of guilt and
Mhm.
shame at, oh my God, here's our beautiful planet, and we're kind of wrecking it. And we've
Yeah.
already wrecked a lot of it, and we're still wrecking it. And then it's like, so then people feel bad about the daily decisions they're making. Like I just turned my heater on, which is probably powered by well, actually, where we live in Cornwall, we are about 90 something percent renewable. Yay. But I drove my car yesterday from Bath to here. It's like, oh, do I feel guilty about that? My whole lifestyle does things to the environment which aren't great. And it's like, so then we can kind of become defensive and justify it. And it's like, well, maybe we just say, you know what? We either participate in the culture as it is and in society as it is and try and change the system,
Yes.
or we just withdraw from the system. And again, I've just said those people who withdraw, and there are people who are choosing to completely live totally off grid, and I question how, when they're totally off grid, they can give anything, they can contribute meaningfully or as meaningfully to this conversation. Because if like it's like at least join the conversation, which means you need to be on the internet, which means you need electricity, which means you need to be somehow in some
Involved.
small way on grid.
Mhm.
So, so I think, if we can release the collective guilt and shame and come at everyone's choices from a place of compassion and understanding, and it's not that there isn't enough of everything to go around. It's just that it isn't well distributed. And it's
Exactly.
sort of
Yeah.
held in places because it's like, I don't become, and that comes from a place of fear or anxiety that there might not be enough down the line. So I better hoard what there is now, knowing that doing that is probably going to cause a deficit somewhere else. So it's like, if we can release our guilt, our shame, and like greed always comes out of fear,
Yes.
our fear, our anger at ourselves, our past selves, our anger at other people who have, whatever for whatever reason in whatever way made decisions that aren't for the highest good of all or didn't work out well for us. If we can release all of that, and I say actually release the emotion, but if we use a modality like CET,
Mhm.
CET doesn't just release the emotion, it actually releases the cause. It repairs the cause
Mhm.
of that. And I think if we can come at it from that, like from a place of compassion, a place of understanding.
I believe that would be like, but again, I lost my words because like you were reading my minds. My mind for so long is going round and round, thinking about all of these things, thinking about what is happening in the world, thinking about why we always choose leaders who are going to destroy everything around us. Why is the ego something which we allow to lead countries or the globe or whatever it is? It's always somehow under quotation mark winning, against love and compassion and everything. But then I think, is it really, or is it just a positional leadership as it is? But if we turn to ourselves, if we find that spot in ourselves and open our hearts, I believe we can shine much brighter than the ego and everything that is going on in the world. I asked you about what you believe would happen when the seventh chakra opens up, because somehow I feel very deep in my soul that some kind of a light or a golden age or whatever we call it, some kind of a very beautiful energy starting 2025 is approaching us. I don't know why. I just simply feel that. And somehow this 2024 was hectic for, almost everyone. With whoever I spoke, it was hectic. And but I strongly feel in the core of my heart that next year will be the start of a different era for the whole humanity. Again, I don't know why. I didn't know all of these things that you just spoke to us about chakras in the aspect of the whole society. I was always looking at chakras in myself or a human being, but this is completely new horizon for me, and I believe for a lot more people who are going to watch or listen to this. I really see a better times coming. So this interview will be published as the last one in this year as an announcement for the beautiful 2025. But before we actually say goodbye for now, I thought that we can actually talk a little bit about something completely different. What do you think about using AI in spirituality? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I think it not only is it possible, I think it could greatly enhance our ability and to support awakening. And first of all, we need to be really realistic about what AI can and can't do. So sometimes people think AI is going to, I think, the movies like Terminator and The Matrix, they've done a lot of disservice to the whole idea of AI.
Mhm.
I don't think it's going to become like a sentient being, and I talk a little bit about it in my book, Our Conscious Tipping Point.
Mhm.
But I think as a tool, it has some incredibly powerful uses. So one of the things that AI does really well is it can spot patterns, particularly linguistic patterns. And so I use a lot of different AI tools, a lot of different tools that are backed by different AI models, particularly the large language models. So I use, Claude and Gemini, but my favorite one at the moment is ChatGPT because of its ability to create custom GPTs. It's sort of like programming it to do a specific thing,
Mhm.
but without any programming. So, I've got a custom GPT that writes my newsletter, or helps me write my newsletter. I've got a custom GPT that speaks in my brand voice. And like 90% of the time, that's pretty much how I would say something.
Yeah.
Which is, like that's, and a lot of people are using, AI for creating content, doing writing, doing their marketing, writing their website. And that's great. That's great. Then we have some other really powerful tools that I've started using it for. So I've developed one that what I've done is I've taught it how to write guided meditation scripts the way I do. And I did
Wow.
it by saying, this is how I write guided meditation scripts. And then I gave it loads of my guided meditation. I mean, I've got 20 years of writing guided meditation scripts. So I gave them all. There's like practically a whole book of them. And it pretty much it goes, okay, so what's the meditation about? How long do you want it? What's the mood or theme? Do you want a long introduction or short? And then it writes it. Now, again, I always have to inject a little bit more humanity into it. But just as a tool, that saves me time. I've also done one that writes transformational stories using my modality, my methodology. Now, one of the things I've done is I've been training it with journal prompts. So it'll give me a journal prompt and I'll just speak into the app with the journal prompt, answering the journal prompt. And then I'm training it so that when it's got enough information, it says, okay, I'm going to take everything that you've said and I'm going to analyze this to find, and it looks for a few things. It looks for your deepest unspoken, unconscious issue or fear that even you haven't recognized. It
Mm.
also identifies, are you slipping into spiritual ego? Are you slipping into ego, just plain ego? Are you slipping into spiritual bypassing? Because spiritual bypassing is a big problem where I'm just going to think happy thoughts and it'll all be fine. And just stay positive, even though, I'm being attacked by an axe murderer. I'll just stay positive. It's like spiritual bypassing, not really good. So it detects all of these and it calls you on your BS, but it does it very politely. I,
Yeah, good to know that.
I'm noticing a pattern where now I mean, the feedback I'm getting from people who I've been testing this on in my I have my what I call the Transcendence Collective, which is like my high level mastermind, and where they get first access to my test custom GPTs and test prompts and processes, and they are coming back saying it's actually scary with the realization now. And I say, yeah, but it's not scary because like, so one of them came back and she said, so apparently my deepest fear is the fear of my own insignificance, the fear that nothing actually matters, and the fear of the void. And I said, great. Now we know that. We can clear that with CET.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we can just use the AI as a diagnostic, and now we've got a tool to clear it. AI will probably never be able to clear it. I don't know. Maybe I could program it to do CET. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. I might give it a go now, though.
Now we have a new idea.
But I definitely think that AI has a real role to play in personal and spiritual development. I think for those of you who are listening, I'm guessing that you probably have some people who are like coaches and practitioners who listen. And one of the things I would say because a lot of spiritual people are terrified of AI. They're like, I don't want a robot, and they're really anti it, and they even believe it's evil. And I think, no, it's like a knife. You can kill with a knife, you can cure with a scalpel,
Exactly.
and also make a great meal with it, when you chop your vegetables or whatever.
Exactly.
And and I think we need to be pragmatic about its uses, aware of where it and how it can be dangerous because it can I mean, it gets stuff wrong, and we need to be aware of that. But as a tool, it has tremendous power and capability. And I think we need to stop being afraid of it because being afraid of AI is not going to make it go away. Throughout human history, every time we get a wave of new technology, any group who try and resist it fail. The
Yeah.
technology will prevail. This happened with people who never wanted the car and they used to barricade it and say horses are bad. This happened with the Luddites who wanted to trash the weaving mills and the looms. This happened with those who said we're going to never have the printing press in our country or in our place, and the printing press, we have the printing press, we like, and beyond. So it will happen. So you might as well accept it and learn to use it. Like, and AI isn't going to come for your job. AI is going to, but your job may be taken by somebody
Who
who
knows
uses
how to use?
AI. And the real, like, goal setting and accountability, AI does that way better than I accountability, like I will forget to call you on your goals, but I can program an email to go out every day, written by AI, that will remind you of something or a text or whatever, you know.
I adore this. I'm so glad that we share this. I use AI every single day, as you mentioned, mostly for business. Lately, I actually use it for some kind of personal things. But you just gave me an idea, which I think might be a very good one, because when I was in scientific center, I was researching psycholinguistics, and we developed a system which can like determine quantitatively if something like an information is true or false.
Okay.
So there are specific rules. And I never thought about that. And I create custom GPTs because I need them for marketing, for everything that I'm doing online and things like that. But the main goal, like in all my knowledge, is actually recognizing if something is a manipulation or is it a truth. Imagine if we have a tool And then we can put on the transcript of the news through that tool, and it will say like 58% of this is actually, yeah, I need to take care of my life if I publish
Oh,
that.
wow.
But you just gave me an idea, and I think I'm going to try to make this. I believe AI can help us in a lot of different fields. It can help us in a lot of different ways. I also tested Grok on X. On X, Elon Musk published a kind of a version of AI which is different than ChatGPT. And I have to say, answers are not so much in alignment. So sometimes I like to ask ChatGPT, sometimes I like to ask Grok, and Grok is more fun, to be honest. It gives you more like funny answers and things like that. But I honestly never thought to use it for personal growth. I never thought to use it for spirituality. I never thought to use it for what I just mentioned. I can actually use it. This opens a lot of new doors. And sometimes we have all of these things in our mind. Sometimes we locked it somewhere, but everything that we learn through our life is something which can be valuable for other people. This is why I believe your work is important. This is why I believe your books are important. This is why I believe this interview and every time we share things like this is very important. So, if people would like to reach out to you or to buy your books, what is the best way to do that?
Well, I am very happy to gift anyone who wishes a copy of my book. So it'll be a digital copy. And you just go to ourconscioustippingpoint.com, or if you are watching the video, you can use the QR code there and that will take you there. You
Mhm.
can also just go to my main website, which is setfreedom.com. So that's CETfreedom.com. There's articles, loads of blogs, loads of resources of papers that you can download. And I am the queen of, I love self-assessment kind
Mhm.
of tools. So there's loads of little quizzes. So there's, what's your spiritual vibration, and where are you in the cycle of awakening? So there's all these little quizzes. Go and
Oh,
take
I
one of
want to
those.
know that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So in the book, I talk about the cycle of transcendent awakening in the 7 stages, which we haven't got time to talk about now, but it's all in the book. And if you go and take the quiz, that is you can get directly there, either on my website, or which is cetfreedom.com, or if you go to beyondegoawakening.com,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
that'll take you to that quiz.
Thank you
So
so
that's
much.
three. I gave you three ways, but just Google me and you'll probably find me.
Yeah, and I will leave the links in the comments below or
Perfect.
description so
Perfect.
they can see that. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining me. Thank you for spending your time with me, for sharing your wisdom. I truly, truly enjoyed, and I hope you did too.
I did. And I just want to thank you, Catherine, for doing what you do. You are a powerful, powerful voice and you have a powerful part to play. Your light is so important. It's so needed. It's so wanted. So keep shining, beautiful, beautiful soul.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa. Bye bye.